Hi there, Copiers. It is the 30th of December and therefore the second to last day of the year. Apologies, I haven't been doing my weekly updates as frequently as I usually do, but I've been traveling and seeing my family in South Africa, so I've been prioritizing trading and research over those updates. All right, so it is obviously the end of the year. It's been quite a year, and so I thought now is a pretty good time to take a look back and see how we've done, how the portfolio has done, and potentially what next year could have in store for us. All right, so in terms of returns, my lifetime return on Etoro as of today is roughly 575%. So that's 5.5 years, maybe 5 years and 9 months worth of returns, which is fairly decent. We can also see returns here. My year-to-date returns are nearly 54%. Today it looks as though the market's going to open up, so maybe we'll end slightly higher, but it's going to be somewhere around there. The worst month this year was the month of March, so that's obviously when the panic around COVID hit, and we started realizing the impact it would have on all of our lives. So through that month, my portfolio did lose some value, but having been through not this, but similar sell-offs, even if the causes are quite different, I knew that it was far better to hold onto some of the stocks that I thought were positioned for the long term. The best month of the year has been November, so with a 16% return. And if we look at my positions, getting to this information is a little bit hard for you, but my best position, the position with the highest return for the year, was one in NEO with 172%. And my worst performing position was an XRP position at a loss of 84%. And that was earlier this year. So for those of you that have been copying me for a while, you will know that I consolidated my crypto portfolio. I basically sold off just about everything I had and then reinvested it almost entirely in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I've been trading those through the year, which proved to be a good call. In terms of my Copiers, so it has been a very good year for me. So I'm currently, I don't know if this number's right, but it's roughly right, 8,400 Copiers, which means that I have added nearly 4,500 Copiers over the past year. I'm looking down and towards the right because that's where my notes are. I don't have my usual setup, so apologies for that. In terms of how long Copiers copy me, on average, it's just over 7 months. So thank you for sticking around. I would advise sticking around for a lot longer than that. For those Copiers that have been with me since January last year, as an example, they will be sitting on over a 100% profit. Yeah, that's right now. So copying for the long term is definitely preferred, and it matches my style of investment. In terms of Copiers currently in profit, that's roughly 89%. And as you can see on screen, my AUM is over $15 million at the moment, which is quite a big increase since the beginning of the year. For those of you that copy or follow me, you will also know that I am prolific on Etoro, so you will have seen the many posts that I've been putting out through the year, and my estimate of this is hundreds, many hundreds, northwards of 200 at least. All right, so thank you very much for all the Copiers that have stuck around, all the new Copiers that have copied me and asked questions. I have various channels that you can take a look at if you want to learn more about me, my trading style, or questions to common answers. This year also marks the year that I shifted my blog away from Medium and towards Substack. So I'll share this link in the video. I haven't been posting very frequently on this at the moment, but I do plan to pick this up again in the new year. I also generate quite a lot of video content, and I have a YouTube channel, which is pretty easy to find. And here you'll see my Copier updates, as well as any content that I share about my trading style or my advice about trading and investment on the platform. Okay, so in terms of my goals for 2020, you can see I put these front and center. within my profile. So my number one goal was to make a return of 20 to 40%. And another way that I express this goal is that I would like to beat the S&P 500 every year on average by 20%, which would mean that my copiers would be making 30% on average per year. You've seen my annual return, and the S&P 500 gained 15.3% year to date. So I smashed my target there, and even beat my stretch target for beating the S&P 500. My second goal was to create returns of $1.5 million for all of my copiers. Now, I don't have access to all of the variables that tell me the exact number that this was, but from the information that I do have, I can tell that I have given my copiers back a profit of roughly $2 to $4 million through the year. I'm very proud of that. I like to make returns off of my own money for myself, but it's always good when I can make a good deal of money for my copiers too. All right, so in terms of this year in review, so we all more or less know what has happened through the year. So in terms of I would say the big 9 topics, we have coronavirus. I'm not going to run through all of the effects. I think by now they're fairly obvious on how they've affected the markets. Brexit, which has affected the UK market, but also the EU, and sometimes the effect has been big enough to leak into Asian and the US markets too. The US presidential election, which we all know was quite an entertaining and tight race. US-Chinese tensions have continued to be an issue. So for those of you that remember, there was the Huawei debacle. The trade war seems to have more or less sorted itself out, but now the US has started an intelligence war with China. So China's obviously the US's biggest competition globally, and it looks like I don't think those tensions are going anywhere for the next decade, maybe 2. Big tech regulation has also reared its head. It happens every few years, but it seems to be becoming more and more aggressive, and this has affected the prices of companies like Facebook and Google. IPOs, there have been so many IPOs this year. I pulled up an article here, and you can see some of the numbers. 194 traditional IPOs. Something else that's become very popular this year are SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies. These are very interesting vehicles to take companies public. I would need to create a video just for that, but it's been a very good year for that type of process and structure of business. It's not new, but it has become a lot more used within the past year, and I think it will be through next year too. The crypto bull run has been very good this year. So I consolidated part of my portfolio, but I continue to hold some of my very old Bitcoin and I think Ethereum positions too. And we have seen that, I think it was last night, Bitcoin hit $28,000 per coin. So we are well beyond Bitcoin's previous all-time high. It's very difficult to know what's going to happen in the short term, but I expect that Bitcoin is here to stay. I think it will become a staple of the economy, similar to that of gold. All right, and lastly, but definitely not least, stimulus. So through the coronavirus pandemic, companies and economies and individuals were all in trouble. There was a great lockdown and people couldn't work and make money. And so governments began issuing money in volumes and ways that had never been done before. And this has driven some very particular behaviors, but in particular for us, the retail market. So retail investors, retail traders, through a combination of easy access to the market as well as increased time and a little bit of spare money, they have now been throwing that into the market, and that's been driving the market in previously unpredictable ways. Okay, so we all know what happened this year. What's more interesting, I guess, is what will happen in the coming year. And the big news publications will all start creating these types of posts over the next few days and weeks. I encourage you to read quite a lot of them. Depending on the publication, you might need to take the predictions with a pinch of salt, because you never are completely sure what their incentive might be to publish particular pieces of content. I really like the Financial Times, and they have some very good, I would say, balanced predictions. They might not all be right, but I think there are very good points to consider when looking at the coming year. My summary, as quickly as I possibly can: coronavirus will continue to have an impact. I'm in South Africa at the moment. In fact, I can't leave South Africa at the moment because my flights back to the UK were cancelled. There's a South African strain, there's a UK strain of coronavirus. We're not sure whether they definitely are more dangerous or more transmissible, but we do know that there's a lot of new panic around them. Vaccines. So vaccines are being rolled out relatively quickly across the world. AstraZeneca and will start delivering I think it was 100 million vaccines to the UK through this year. They're not going to make a profit on any of those vaccines, so good on you, AstraZeneca. But vaccines will start becoming very important to the markets because there are a number of stocks or companies that haven't been able to make any money while there is a great lockdown. So hospitality, travel, and once vaccines are in play and there's a little bit more certainty around people being able to travel safely, I think we will see money flood into some of those areas because companies that have been able to survive, travel companies, for example, that have been able to survive through the great lockdown, should recover quite quickly. I think there is a lot of pent-up demand for things like travel. US policy changes. So there's a new president in the office. How will policies change? I don't know yet, but it's something to keep an eye on. UK recovery. So Brexit. I'm not sure it was the best idea, but the uncertainty of Brexit negotiations, trade negotiations, etc., has been worse for the market than actually knowing where we stand. Now that we know where we stand, I know that the trade negotiations will continue for some time. That means that the UK market will likely recover. I think there are a lot of stocks in the UK market that the selling has been massively overdone. There will be some unexpected consequences of Brexit, both good and bad, and so we need to keep an eye out for those too. This one's a little bit controversial, but I think we will see a bit of a value rotation. I'm not sure of the size and suddenness of this value rotation. And what I mean by this is there are a lot of growth stocks that have done fantastically well through a lockdown. So let's take the pinnacle, the number one example of Zoom. And these companies, they have gained a lot of business through the lockdown. They are fantastic companies, but the buying has been hugely overdone. But people in this market, especially the retail investors, they buy what has gone up, and therefore they drive those things up even more and becomes kind of a cycle. When it becomes obvious that, for example, travel stocks or accommodation stocks are going to start doing very well because there's a vaccine and it's been rolled out effectively, I think people will start considering that the likes of Zoom, potentially Shopify, and many, many others, the risk of holding them will become too large, and the reward ratio of buying those other stocks will become much better. And so money will leave growth stocks that have been overbought and start entering other stocks that have a lot of recovery on the cards. As I mentioned before, so I think the IPOs and the SPACs will continue through next year. And I guess as part of the value rotation, so money moving out of hypergrowth stocks into the likes of banks, banking stocks, potentially travel stocks. I think some of the stay-at-home stocks will also come down to earth as the vaccines are rolled out. So just be a little wary there. Even if they're good companies, you need to look at how they are looking fundamentally. By the way, I don't think a wholesale rotation out of tech is on the cards. There are some companies that have done very well through the pandemic, and I don't think they're necessarily overbought. Some of the FANGs are still okay in terms of fundamentals, and so I don't think we necessarily will see a wholesale drop in every company in the NASDAQ, but there are definitely some that are looking particularly risky right now. All right, so that is basically it. That is my year in review. Thank you very much to all of my copiers. It's been quite a year. I've had a lot of fun trading through this year. There's been some terrifying moments thrown in there too. I've learned a lot from the market and the opportunities it gave me. I've learned a lot from many of my copiers. Next year is going to be another great year. I'm very optimistic about next year too. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great new year. All right, bye.